Hi there, Reject Nation. My name is Greg Alba.
My name is John Humphrey.
We're going to do a top reward tier request, which is another video podcast, and that today comes from a man named Eric Horstman.
I love him.
Eric Horstman, his request is, how has social media, our opinion, how has that affected fame plus the industry?
Not at all.
Not at all. I think everything's going great for every famous person out there. Producers, actors, directors. It's all going splendidly for them.
Hollywood celebrities are getting away with just as much debauchery and crime as they were back in the golden days.
And that's the way it should be. And social media isn't ever going to help that out. Ever. End of podcast. You guys can subscribe to the Reject Nation. I think it has drastically affected the industry. And I'm not even going to talk about like the big things right now. You know, like with the Me Too movement and cancel them.
I feel like we've dredged that territory a couple times now.
I kind of, when I hear this question, I actually think about all my friends. We live in LA. And I think about all my friends who have greatly been affected by the rise of social media and how important that plays into their even audition process. And this goes for musicians as well. This goes for all kinds of, I think even more than actors, the actresses actually, who really suffer that they don't really get taken into account what their audition talent is. They get taken into account a lot of the time, more so, is their social media following. I've met so many people who have gone to there's several stages when you audition. You do your audition, then you get a callback, maybe a second or third callback, and then I forget which one it is. You eventually go to testing, and testing's where you're doing your audition again in front of like a bunch of all the producers and the writers, everyone involved, right? And there are people who I met who have been flat out told, not just an assumption, but told their social media following isn't big enough. Now when they apply for certain roles, or they're asked, how many Twitter followers do you have? Like this, it's kind of crazy how much this factors in now, more than just are you talented or not. There's always obstacles that actors have to overcome, but I think especially here,
Yeah, well, I feel like it's weird to be like, how many people can you be directly responsible for coming to see this thing we're going to involve you in? Or else,
Yeah.
And it does break my heart to hear that about people, because it is like the most brazen way of saying it's just about a number, and that can often be the deciding factor between who gets a role and who doesn't. And it's fascinating to watch the walls come down, between us and celebrity and all the things in between. It's funny to think that this phenomenon of social media overall is something that affects everybody in similar and very different ways, because centering this around acting and around the industry, so to speak, it's funny because there are things that are unique to that, like this situation with people not being cast or whatever, because of their followings, but also it makes the barriers just between our lives and the context we see all very different, and it definitely changes the perception of celebrity on the other side of the scale, because now people have always taken ownership of celebrities and have formed emotional bonds to them, but I feel like that is accelerated in a sense now.
Absolutely. I mean, there seems to be less of a separation of an artist now. Like there are so many artists seem to they have to go on social media, they have to post, and they have to interact with their fans. And in some ways that's a great thing. In some ways that's a really, really cool thing. And it's like it's easy to just focus on the darker side of these things, where someone fucks up with a tweet or someone messes up with an Instagram post, and then gets all this backlash or whatever. But it's kind of weird, even like with YouTube, when you see like Will Smith has a YouTube channel now, freaking Jack Black has a YouTube channel now. This way of famous people, artists, actors, whatever, musicians, to directly interact with their fans
and directly influence them.
It's going to sound incredibly hypocritical, because I feel like for myself, if I was an actor or had a different profession right now outside of YouTube, which is all about directly interacting with the subscribers and such, I think I would want to distance myself and limit myself a little bit more from that. I mean, it's cool if you're someone who's totally fine with it. I remember Bo Burnham was one of the first people to talk about that, actually, at an event. I think we were both there for it. I can't remember if we were both there or if I was just there, but Bo Burnham was saying how he made an intentional choice to, like, I'm not going to do Vine, like when Vine was still popular, like, I'm not going to do Vine anymore. This manipulation tactic that you guys are friends with me is not true. Is like what he was talking about.
Yeah.
That there should be a separation, so that way you could just take my work as what it is and not be so invested in who Bo Burnham the person is, and more of just what my work is that I'm doing. And that's always stuck with me. Like, I don't know exactly what he said word for word. This wasn't even a recorded event. At least it wasn't something that went on YouTube or something. But the idea of what he was talking about really stuck with me, and I feel like he stuck to his guns on it.
Yeah,
I don't really see him on social media. Yeah,
Periodically I'll see him post something on Instagram, but it seems like he really only posts when he really has something that all of his fans ought to know about, or occasionally when it's truly minutia
to promote.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a funny thing too, because now social media in and of itself is not just one thing, and I think it's not, this is kind of outside the celebrity debate, but I feel like it's fascinating in a way, because there are no established rules of what it's for, what the proper etiquette is, what the proper protocol, like what kind of thing are we supposed to be reading on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc. And so it creates a funny landscape to me, because it does create a sort of Tumblr filled with all these different flavors. And it's weird. I gotta imagine to have that when you're in a position like somebody in the industry is, especially if you're visible.
Yeah. I also think that I've seen a lot of people who I'm not gonna specifically name people, only because I happen to know a couple. But there are people that were working actors who had TV shows or did movies. And in order for them to stay relevant, because you don't really see them on TV anymore and you don't really see them in movies, but in order for them to stay relevant and in the public sphere, they have to constantly engage with their personal life on social media, when their main association was actor on a show or actress. And now they have to use social media in order to seem like they're still around,
Yeah, and that's weird to me, because that's gotta feel strange if you're cultivating your relevance through this one channel, and especially if you're stressed about that, I have to imagine that's a vacuum for your self-esteem in a way. Yeah, because you gotta then force yourself to broadcast. And it's always funny to me when people say, like, I hate vlogging, but I'm doing it. Because I'm like, that is literal. You're just recording your life, and if you hate recording your life, that is kind of a weird, contorted thing to do. And it can be disingenuous then, in the connection with you and your people.
Well, the flip side of it is the pursuit of fame too, which I find very fast. I was on the John Campea show with Robert Meyer Burnett, and after John Campea logged us off, Robert Meyer Burnett and we were still able to see each other and talk. And we talked for like 25 more minutes. And one thing we brought up was how we, like, even for us, we were around before Facebook or MySpace or YouTube was even a thing. Yep. So we never grew. I find it so laughable whenever I meet a social media, an influencer or a YouTube personality who's like fucking cocky as shit, because they're actually kind of rare. Honestly, I don't really meet a lot of those kind of people, but once in a while you do, and I find it funny when you are that person. Because most of us didn't have YouTube or social media when we were younger. So this wasn't a thing we strived for as kids. Like, I didn't grow up thinking, I want to be on the internet. That wasn't a thing of mine.
You could be on the TV or on the movies.
Yeah, those were like the ultimate dreams. And YouTube always seemed like the middle part for where I can, like, all right, well, how can I make a living at least talking about the things I want to do? But basically what I'm talking about is like, my girlfriend, she works at a school right now, and she's constantly telling me about, and actually the guy who helped me find my new apartment, the real estate guy, he was saying how his kid constantly talks about how he wants to grow up to be a YouTuber, and my girlfriend works with children who want to grow up to be YouTubers, and it's just so weird to me to think like this is a thing that kids now are wanting to grow up to do. So I think social media has not just affected the industry of the people who already exist that we see who made it through acting or whatever. Now it's affecting the kids in their pursuit of things. And I feel like even the pursuit of fame has its own narcissistic qualities, of course. But I think now more than ever, that narcissism is going to just be like doubly amplified.
Yeah.
Because there are people who grow up, I want to be a vlogger. I want to do these things, I want to just use my personal life to gain fame. I don't think it's all negative. I don't think it's all dark or whatever. I do find it very interesting, though, how...
Oh, it's fascinating.
Yeah, people want to grow up to use their personal life to...
Well, yeah, because the thing is, like, especially with social media, the lines between life and entertainment start to blur, and the duration and format of entertainment starts to change, and now we had people making money, making livings off of 6-second loop video. Like, it's fascinating to watch everything change and then wonder what is truly kind of the same as it's always been and what isn't. And I think there is also an aspect, too, when people die, because I wonder, before, it's like you would find out about that in the news or in the paper or something like that. It wasn't just this instantaneous thing that we can then all bandy around, which is an interesting thing that has changed. Now, when a celebrity or a well-known figure dies, that becomes its own cultural moment that feels just like it casts a much broader net than perhaps it used to, unless it was somebody at the very top, Yeah. And the other thing, too, that's occurred to me is that social media, I think, has changed the industry, not just for the perspective of actors both struggling and at the top in their own ways, but also because it's essentially free market testing. If you go to Twitter, YouTube, I was thinking about this the other day, last night, in fact, you were cutting the Men in Black second trailer, and then I rewatched the first video we did, and I'm not trying to be arrogant so much as to say that, Sony watched, but I started to wonder, because we broke down that trailer, and I was like, kind of every nitpick we had for this got addressed in that second trailer. And which just led me to believe that they have to, because like reaction videos are so popular, because everyone's tweeting, because hashtags exist, it must be so easy for the studios to go in, see what people are saying, expecting, hoping for. And in the culture where people, especially you look at, say, Warner Brothers, kind of getting trigger happy on correcting things meticulously, I think social media feeds that heavily.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I feel like most of the main studios have contacted us at least one time from seeing one of our trailer reactions and getting a little bit more insight into how a lot of that works. It's easy to, you can like go to a hashtag on Twitter and try to determine what people are saying, but you can go to people who have a following on YouTube and then see what the comments are saying. If we like a trailer and then there's a lot of upvotes for liking it, that tells them something. If we don't like something, and it's not just us, like we know there are channels who are way more popular than us.
They're watching Tyrone.
Yeah. Beyond the trailer, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
And if they don't like something, and there's a lot of upvotes and a lot of comments engaging of like, I agree, this looks like shit. That says another thing,
Look at the genie. How quickly we got another look at that. Yeah.
People, they do pay attention to that. It is the free market. It's the easiest way to get feedback as well, which I feel like can be at times it's easier to read into that, as opposed to when there were times where I when I was much younger, what the hell are those called? God damn, what are they called? It's been so long since. Like focus groups. Yeah. There's no need for focus groups a lot of the time now. I never get approached for them. I don't get a random email. I don't hear of anyone participating in them. I'm sure they still exist, but they seem to be a lot fewer, because now you can just get it through going on the fucking internet and see what people are saying.
Anything that's just like opinion based, anything you don't need real people to jump into and try.
Rather than getting 15 people in a room to see what they think of it, just see what the internet's saying about it, because then you got hundreds of thousands of people all chiming in of what they think about this thing. You know, it is fascinating to me. I think I don't think social media, like my personal relationship with social media is a whole other topic as opposed to the business side of social media. I didn't even start really utilizing my social media until because I just wanted to do YouTube. And then once YouTube, algorithm and payways, it kept changing, then I had to start building social media up a little bit more. And even though I can get into the darkness of it, I get in the foggy mind of being like, oh, I've been on my app too much. I do think there's a lot of great benefits to it, because there are some people who do get famous who want that interaction with their fans.
And who are very natural
like
at it.
You're gonna see people like Chris Pratt, but you're never gonna see a Daniel Day-Lewis or a Christian Bale fucking do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
They want that separation. They want to only be looked at for their work. Whereas, to me, it's not all that far off from when famous actors and actresses or musicians were very personality driven, as opposed to just their art.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're someone who just wants to be only for your art, you're not really gonna see them on social media. But someone who, like, we want to see Will Smith be Will Smith, we want to see Chris Pratt be Chris Pratt, they're going to be social media based, and that's fine. That's literally no judgment against them. That's just a different kind of, because there is an art to it depending on how you use it.
Yeah, weirdly, I think a lot of these thing I think is super fascinating about this whole talk is that it's created social media a lot of new values to discuss, and they all have pros and cons. Like, none of them are just inherently good or bad, really. It's
I felt like before we talked about it might be like, oh, we're gonna get all negative, but I'm like, no, it's actually not it's not 100%. It's kind of 50-50 for me.
Yeah, it's changed the way our world works in a fascinating way, and I think you can kind of look at it through the lens of, like, in certain ways, it thins out the barriers between the people upstairs and the rest of us.
Sure.
And it gives a certain amount of power to just the people contributing to the flow of ideas on this machine. So for better, people can speak out and cause real change. And for worse, people can speak out with bad information and cause some nasty errors,
Well, and I also think, too, because I'm trying to keep it in the topic because of Eric's question was specifically about fame and industry. One of my favorite artists is Eminem, and I feel like something happened around his was it relapse? Not relapse. No, the one before Kamikaze. What was it called?
Recover. No.
It's an R.
Oh my goodness! We've all stricken it from our memories.
What the hell is that called? John and I have been very sleep deprived for the past 6 days. We're in the middle of the movie.
What is that Eminem?
What the hell is that Eminem called?
Eminem. Well, anyway, what were you going to say about it?
What the? Okay. No, I mean
Revival.
Revival. God damn it!
You're
Eminem, and I can't remember his fucking help.
What happened?
I was like, it's the R word.
Yeah.
I feel like around Revival, Eminem just discovered social media.
Yeah, now it's fueling his, like,
fuels all his raps, right?
Righteous indignation.
But like what he did with the interviews post that, and YouTube being another form of social media, YouTube's kind of this weird ground. Because it's not exactly interacting, even though they're trying to form it more into it. You could do stories and community posts now. You've always been able to reply to comments, but now they have more ways where they're trying to make it more of a real social media platform. And what Eminem did with Kamikaze, we're just like, fuck it, drop that shit, no heads up, is kind of a crazy ass thing to me, of how he had this huge album with no promo.
Yeah.
And that's the power of social media, because you get to talk, they get shared. So I think there's a lot of really cool shit that can come from it,
Yeah, and in various entertainment industries, especially film and music, obviously, I feel like there's also just a lot more potential to get your stuff out there, and social media is a huge part of that, because, SoundCloud has blown up. People get plucked out of YouTube to make major motion pictures now. And, that's also a big thing, is you can get your work out there so much easier. And the drawback is you have to fight against a current of other creators now who have the access too. But yeah, I think the catapult is now designed differently. Because look at like David F. Sandberg got big from some shorts he made, and granted he had the skill, they were good shorts, but you know, that got huge on YouTube, and pretty soon Lights Out was a movie. It was a full movie.
So yeah, it's a whole gray area. There's always going to be pros and cons to every part of the industry, and with everything pretty much. But yeah, I don't know. What are your guys' take on how social media has affected fame and industry and whatnot? Leave it in the comments below. Social media. You guys can subscribe to the Reject Nation. Click that notification bell. And Eric Horseman, thanks so much for requesting this, dude. I hope you do come out here in August, and we will buy you a drink, and we will snap photos with that real Rejects tattoo you got. In case you guys haven't heard, he has a real Rejects tattoo.
And it's big.
First guy only. We're never going to get one because this channel will get shut down one day. Thank you, guys.
The Action Channel's dead.